I do know that my son is extremely pissed at Warzone right now because I don't think he's had a solo victory yet. Maybe he has. I don't know. I don't think he has. And, of course, he talks mad shit, your typical 18-year-old or whatever. Well, today, he thought he was going to win. He got down to the last circle. It's him and one other guy. He's like, Dad, it's 1v1. I got this shit. So he's got a vehicle, right? So he's driving around, and he's like, all right, I'm just hunting for this guy. And the guy starts shooting at him, shooting in the vehicle. It gets critical damage. So he jumps out. He starts shooting the guy. He's like, ga. Puts the guy down. The guy goes in the gas. He's starting to try to self-revive him, but he's going to die before it happens. The vehicle that he just got out of blows up and kills him, and he loses.
And that other guy was like, yes.
The other
That's
guy,
hilarious.
and you know what? You've been there. It's like you sit there and you're like, oh, fuck. And next thing you know, you get the blue Warzone victory, and you're like, what? What the fuck? I won.
Yep. That's hilarious.
Did you get to see that happen? Did you see that happen?
No, he just came out. He was angry, dude. Like I think he would have thrown his Xbox up against the wall if he could have. We've all been there. He's like, Dad, I was getting ready to get my win, and he was going into detail, and he goes, and that dude was down, and he was trying to self-revive, but he was in the gas, no plates, and next thing you know, the vehicle blows up.
If you could have seen it. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
That's a funny Warzone moment. It wasn't funny for you, but the time I dropped the loadout on top of the helicopter blades, and that sniper just stopped shooting because he was looking at us like we were all dumb fucks. That's the funniest Warzone experience I've seen.
He's like, you guys are all idiots.
I was telling him, Josh, remember that sniper who stopped shooting at us because we were so fucked up, and he was just laughing at us.
He was like, there's no way this is real, man. These dudes are just trying to draw me out. Like, they're glitching so bad.
And there are some dudes, man, that are just so tough to play with. We got a couple guys that, like, I can play with one of them if it's just like one of them on our team. But like, there's a couple, like, if it happens to be two and you've got both of these dudes, it is so fucking difficult and frustrating. Because I get it. It's a video game. But you play to win, right? That's why you fucking play. You play to win. If I want to just go out and get kills, I'll play multiplayer or whatever. I'm playing to win the fucking game. That's the whole goddamn point. And it's like, can you guys do anything else to not win this fucking game for us? Because, these games, I mean, they're 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. You get 27 minutes invested in this shit, and then all of a sudden you get down and, I don't know. So we got some guys that have different gameplays, and it's very, very frustrating.
Luke and I are right here. We can hear you.
No, I think we all play about the same. I mean, every now and then, Luke gets his little fucking, well, I guess you do too. I just fucking, I got to shoot. But it's like,
shoot this guy.
We were playing this game, the other day, and we're playing quads, and we're in the house, and it's like, hey, we're good. We're right in the middle of the circle. It's coming down. There's like one or two circles left. We're good. People are in another house. Well, he wants to go in there 1-on-4. So it's like, okay, so you know what happens, right? He's like, well, I got 3 of them, but there's one more, and then the guy kills him. So then the other guy's like, well, okay, well, that clearly didn't work for you, so I'm going to come over there and go ahead and try to revive you while you're down. So then it quickly goes down to, well, we've got 2 of us left, and 2 players left on quads. Your odds are not very good to win that.
No.
3 you can do. 4 is obviously better. If it's solos or duos, you can get away with a lot, right? Like your margin of error is pretty big because you can go out and kill 2 players. It's not a big deal. But you play trios or quads, you got to have your full team or, at least the majority of them. So
yeah, I got greedy earlier today. I had a good spot. I was downtown on top of a building, one way up. I had two betties, on the rope. There was no other way to get up there, and a 4-wheeler went by, and I was like, "Oh, I got this! I got a Gila." I was like, "I got this! Like, I'm gonna smoke this dude from the top of the building, and it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and chalk up another kill." So I jumped up on there, and as I'm standing up there locking on him, as soon as I lock on him, I launch it, and then I get shot in the face by somebody on another building. So it was like, and there was less than 20 people left too. I was like, if I would have just laid here and just let him go, who knows what would have happened.
Next time, I'm sure you'll do the right thing.
No, probably not.
Well, early in the game, it's like Roger said, early in the game is the best time to like. But what if there's like 25 dudes left, or even 40, it's like now's not the time to start fucking around. Especially, I mean,
it depends.
I'm not that good, man.
I mean, I get it because early on, you're right. I mean, early on, sometimes it is what it is. You drop in and other teams fall around you. Hey, man, you got to do what you got to do to get your, until you get your loadout. Once I've got my loadout and, you should be setting up and hunkering down or whatever, it's like, hey, man, now's not the time to go out and 1-on-4 it. And I don't mind, like, if it's 1-on-2, I'm all for it because, again, you can kill both players. But 1-on-4, you're not going to kill all four. You just can't do it. You don't have the ammo. You're not going to be able to reload fast enough. And you can't do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely some players can do it. Not me. I'm just not that good. Whatevs.
Plus, they're on a helo with C4 on it.
That's
Dude,
true.
I still love doing that. I love putting C4 on there. They take off.
I'm
and,
carrying
he's like,
C4 from now on.
He's like, fuck you guys. I took your shit. Let him get about 100 yards up. Boom. It's like, love it.
Yeah.
The only problem with C4, maybe you can help me out with this, is if you get two of them, you can't detonate one and then detonate the other.
Right. They both detonate at the same time, so you just got to throw one.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can't have two in your. You can have two, but if you have two, you throw one down, and then he takes off in the helicopter. You try to detonate it, and you throw another one down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that, but I'm gonna get over it because, dude, I'm not getting killed like I did today in the last circle with that fucking truck.
Man, dude, I just realized you're not going to be able to play for the next 30 days.
Think about taking the PlayStation with me.
Do you have a laptop, like a regular laptop?
Yeah.
Because if you have a regular laptop, you can download it for free and play. Because like Brent and Jason, that's what they do. They play off their laptop.
You should try. You should totally try and do that on your Acer.
It'll run it. Shit'll run.
That'd be as laggy as your fucking recording here on Riverside.
That's all the computer. You watch when I'm back with some fast internet.
That's all right, man.
I'm sure that's the difference.
I'm gonna have to pawn my MacBook to pay for our backyard fireplace. So,
see, and that's the thing I like about out here versus back east, because like out here, you're just paying an hourly wage for the labor. So they don't care if, they'll build a fucking house. That dude doesn't care. He's like, look, dude, I'm $25 an hour. And of course you get the right guys, right? You get a masonry dude or you get a concrete guy or whatever. He's like, whatever you fucking want built is $25 an hour. And if you want me here 8 hours, you got to be willing to pay that. And then, materials. And so it's like when we had our concrete countertops done at the bar and this and that, dude, it was like $500, man. It's like a $10,000 concrete countertop. It was like $500. Guys like, well, I'm a concrete guy and you bought all the concrete and I worked, 8 hours. So that's, versus like back east, it's like by project, right? Oh, you want your backyard? Yeah. That's going to be $10K.
So we had a landscape designer out to, take a look at the backyard. And so we want a pavilion in the backyard with a fireplace, not a fire pit. So we obviously have a fire pit now, the folks can sit around, but we want a pavilion, something that's covered that we can go out and enjoy it, even if it's raining, and
right.
Have a place for folks to hang out and sit and everything. And so to come out and take a look, and it was like, all right, a fireplace, a stone fireplace. Just the fireplace. We're not talking about the concrete pad, whether it's stamped concrete, whether you're doing pavers, it doesn't matter. The fireplace was like 15 to 20K. Right. Without question.
Dude, just go Ryan. What was that dude's name? Ryan Seacrest or whoever was in the debt. He just taught himself how to do all that shit. You laid lay a wood floor down.
There are certain things you can do, like wood floors and tile, stuff like that. So I've gone out and tried to do like masonry work. Yeah, so you want to hire somebody for that shit. You know what I mean? There's certain things that's like, hey, no, of course not.
So, yeah. And so it was like, all right, so we're talking that, and then to pour the or do a paver foundation, right? So just do a paver pad. It was like, all right, so 10 by 25, just a 10 by 25. It's not big at all when you're talking, an outdoor pavilion sitting area, with a bar and stuff like that. That right off the bat, just the pavers was $85K.
No, my
Or
God.
no, 8,500.
Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
Jesus.
And it was just like, okay, so 15 for the fireplace, we're at 85 for the pavers. We haven't got to anything else yet. We haven't got to, all right, we're going to put, perennials over here. We're going to do a path, from your patio out, to it. Like, we ain't even there yet. And we're already over 20K. And it was just like,
So I've got a fix.
holy smokes.
We take a couple of our dudes out here. You might have to pay travel and per diem, but I tell you what, you'll be at least 50% cheaper than what you're at. They might have to sleep in your backyard.
Hey, that's fine, man. I'll coyote them from your house out here.
Yeah, that's the way to go, dude.
It was crazy, man. It was crazy. I was like, dude, you're nice, and you're like, okay, yeah, give me your card. We'll we gotta talk some things out, dude. As soon as you left, we were like, no, like there's no way, like there's absolutely no way. Oh.
All right, let's do this shit. Good day and welcome to another episode of Culper's Canteen Cup, episode 50. Big thanks to Carlton Zeus, www.carltonzeus.com, or hit him up on Apple Music. Thanks for the intro. Pretty shocking over the week here because I did not realize that we have so many listeners in India. So I think we have, and Luke can correct me here, I think we have like 85% of our listeners, 83% of our listeners, what have you, from the U.S. But take a guess. We have 6% of our listeners come from India. That's pretty daggum incredible. So for our listeners that are out there, we've already had at least 5 or 10 of them hit us up on Facebook. We dig the interaction. Definitely like the page. Check out our YouTube. And I think we're now on Ghana, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if I'm not mistaken, that's I think it's one of the largest podcast platforms as well as music, kind of like their Spotify or whatever out there. So we definitely thank you folks for listening out there. I think Josh might have done a little bit of research, or maybe Luke did, but it's definitely one part of the world that I am not overly educated in as far as all the geopolitical issues and this and that. It's just a little far stretch for me. And unlike Luke, I'm not so much of a globalist. But I guess we'll jump right into it. Let's start with the CDC guidance, man. So now we're officially 2 masks, right? So then if you're wearing 2 masks, well, why not 3? And, right. I mean, it just makes sense. If it's 3, why not 4? If it's 4, why not 5? And you go on forever. But then here's what's confusing. They come out and say, well, okay, if you've been vaccinated and you come into contact with somebody who has COVID, you no longer need to quarantine. So, okay. So if I've already got, I've already had the Rona, Luke's already had the Rona, Josh has had syphilis. So with that, and then you had the vaccine, why are we wearing masks? Well, the excuse the CDC's been giving, and Fauci said this right off the bat, was, well, we don't know if you can still spread it. So I'm glad you're making me wear something. I'm glad the government is mandating that I wear something because you don't know that it can be spread. But apparently you do know enough that if you've been vaccinated, you come into contact with somebody that you don't have to self-quarantine, because that would be the issue, right? Is that you would continue to spread it. And I think my bigger point here with all of this stuff is, and I'll bring it up front, we'll say Trump up front, maybe it's just not as easy as what it seems, because that seems to be what's going on with the Biden administration. Is all these armchair quarterbacks, the CDC needs to do this and the White House needs to do this, and everybody had all these great ideas. And I'll be the first to admit, the guidance from the CDC was not the best, been all over the place. Fauci has been from extreme left to extreme right. We can go back just historically and pull up the last year. The guy is all over the place. CDC's been all over the place. And I get it. There's nothing hard and fast. I mean, obviously the, human nature, that's the dynamic, right? That's the variable. That's what changes. And it kind of depends on who you are and what your situation is. But I think what you saw this week, especially with the school unions and the openings and the vaccinations, and it's like, hey, it's not as easy to get this message as clear and as straight as what you want. At least as what they campaigned on during the election. And then, you go back to Jen Psaki, which today was classic because they did the White House press briefing first. Then they did the CDC briefing and their guidance after the press briefing, so you don't have to answer any questions. And then you do it on a Friday afternoon, right, before a long weekend. So guess what's going to happen with this thing? it's totally going to get washed out. So, take that, for what it is. But Luke, what's I guess the bigger question is here, like, when did the CDC become the sole authority on everyday living? I mean, I get it. They're a function of the government and they have a role, right? Just like we've talked about, several other issues. It's, hey, there's an economic piece to it. There's a health piece to it. There's a general welfare, security piece to it. There's a mental health piece to it. And generally what you expect your executives in the federal government to do and the state and the local levels to take all those pieces, put it together and plot the best way forward. But it seems like, ever since last year, and it started with the Trump administration, like, number one, I would have never put Fauci on TV, ever. Never would have let that dude, maybe have him answer a couple questions or whatever, but he is never going to put, never going to have like an interview just by himself or go out there in a press briefing by himself. That's never going to happen. But Luke, when did the CDC start becoming the sole authority on how we live our everyday lives?
Oh, when people got scared, so scared. And then there's the fallback, it's CDC, FBI, CIA. You say those acronyms and it immediately, most sheep think competence and, can do and all this stuff. And while Roger was talking, he asked the question, then he went on talking. I was trying to remember, there's an earlier podcast. Those of you may have a better memory than me. There's an earlier podcast where I described an effect that happens in people's brains, and it was early on in the podcast series where, a newspaper will make a mistake. They'll say something about something you're an expert in, like Josh is an expert on being angry. So the newspaper will write a story about being angry, and Josh is like, "Well, I know for a fact that they're flawed in this. This article is BS." Because, and we'll say, we won't say being angry. We'll say about cars, like a mechanic. So a mechanic's reading that, and the newspaper says something just the mechanic knows is not right. All cars use carburetors now. The mechanic's like, no, that's not right. But the mechanic will turn the page of the same newspaper, read another article, see something, be like, oh, that's interesting. That must be 100% correct. It's an effect that happens in the brain where it's like the newspaper just lost credibility. So shouldn't the whole thing lose credibility? No. I'll let that one go. And like with the CDC, for instance, you remember it was March 2nd. I looked up this article today. March 2nd, 2020. The CDC came out and old Dr. Fauci came out too and said, you shouldn't wear a mask. You absolutely should not wear a mask.
Right.
And I made a joke on some local newspaper page. And I was like, I've been in a coma since 2 March 2020 when Fauci told us not to wear masks. I woke up this morning, and I was commenting on a news article where he's saying wear two. I woke up this morning and imagine my confusion. And I linked to the article on 2 March 2020. So it's like, and we all know why the CDC did that. They did that so that two reasons. They did that, one, so there wouldn't be a shortage, and two, like Roger said, they just didn't know. I mean, there was a lot of stuff we still don't know about this virus. And, but yeah, we give them credibility now when they say to wear two. I mean, well, wait, I remember when they said don't wear any because there was a mask shortage. Is there a mask surplus now? And like some big mask maker is saying, hey, see if we can move more masks. Because we don't want these things in a giant warehouse just collecting dust. I mean, how is the mind not supposed to go there? I mean, man, the two masks thing is just that takes.
Well, and at that same time, remember that was the same time during that time period where it was right before then, where you had the Chinese Lunar New Year. And remember, Dr. Barbo came out from New York, which I think she actually quit, and said, nope, you need to get out in the streets. You need to party like rock stars. And, oh, yeah, I do believe that even Nancy Pelosi came out, right, and said the same thing. Like, you need to be down in Chinatown. Absolutely.
Like I said, there's just so much we still don't know. Like the vaccine, Josh's best friend, Bonnie, called me out the other day and said, I remember when you said there was never going to be a vaccine. And I was like, well, okay, all right, I'll give you that. But I knew there wouldn't be a vaccine the same as like the regular flu vaccine that we get. and that's what I was intending. You know, the mRNA vaccine that is coming out now is the first one of its kind. It's never been done before. So it's like, okay, all right. I should have maybe qualified that, and in the future I'll think about those things. But the vaccine itself just seems so, I mean, it seemed, I'm sure it'll be talked about the other way now, but it seems so fragile. And, you know, it's got to be kept at negative 77. It's only good for X amount of days. And all this after it's been, after the seal's been broken, it just seems very fragile. Seems like there's a lot we don't know about that too. Now I'm going to get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an anti-vax or anything. I'll get it. After being in the military, I've had so much other stuff pumped in my body. I'm not worried about this thing at all. But back to COVID, you know, and I'll kick it over to Josh for his thoughts on CDC and COVID. And we're still talking about it, man. It's going to be a year and we're still talking about this stuff. But in the limited amount of research I've done, and, you know, I'm not by any means an expert on anything medical, but I don't know that there's ever been a SARS or influenza virus that affects a person neurologically. And as far as I can tell, the loss of taste and smell, that's a neurological problem. It's a neurological problem. Yeah, that happens in the brain. When you sniff something, your nose isn't actually your nose is sniffing it, but your brain is telling you what those things are. Same thing with taste. That all happens in the brain. And I don't know if there has been a SARS or influenza that has done that, affected the body, you know, neurologically to that extent. And I mean, I know we're not going to spend the whole episode on this, but, you know, now we're back to saying that it came from bats after the big investigation. No way it came from the Wuhan lab. And I'd really like to delve into this with you guys. I mean, I was asking a friend of mine yesterday, I was like, you know, who would it benefit? Who would it benefit if incontrovertible 9/11 type proof came out that this virus leaked from the Wuhan lab? Not on purpose, not even on purpose, just accidentally leaked. Who would that benefit? It's like, it's a fact. This is what happened. I say no one would benefit from that other than the common man knowing the truth. So yeah, a lot of people would, but the powers that be, no one would benefit from that. What do you think, Josh?
No, nobody would benefit knowing that it came, you know, if it was confirmed to come from the Wuhan lab. As for the CDC guidance, or two masks are better than one, okay. Again, like Ryan said, why not 10? Why not 100? I mean, I think 5 seatbelts are probably better than one, right? You know those water wings you wore as a kid when you got in the pool before you really learned how to swim? I mean, probably 20 of those work better than 2. You know, it's just kind of, why 2? Why not more? I tell you what does not work. Well, actually, it does work if you want to hold your hair in place. Is Gorilla Glue. That works. Did you guys see the story?
Oh my Lord!
Glue? All right. So for those of you who have, you know, are living in a cave in Tora Bora for the last couple of weeks, so this girl from Louisiana ran out of a product for her hair, and so she decided that she was going to use Gorilla Glue to hold her hair in place. Hey, dude, that's an industrial strength adhesive. I don't. And so now, of course, it took a month. A doctor, a plastic surgeon or somebody out in California concocted a potion to, you know, to get it out of her hair. So she's got it out of her hair now. But for like a month, she basically was running around with a Mitch helmet on her head that, you know, was her hair. So she is now talking about on social media, you know, she wants to sue Gorilla Glue. She wants to sue Gorilla Glue, much like the lady, you know, that lady from McDonald's who sued because she got hot coffee. You know, she poured hot coffee on herself and was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it was hot." It was like, "Well, you ordered hot coffee. What do you think it's going to be?" You know, I mean, I poured coffee on myself from a place, you know, last year, you know, year before, something like that, and it wasn't, "I'm going to sue you." It was, "God, I'm stupid. Why did I do that? I'm not paying attention." So anyway, but yeah, so she wants to sue Gorilla Glue because it did not say "do not put on your hair." You know, some things, I don't know, whatever. Hey, folks, if you're out there listening, don't spray industrial strength adhesive into your hair when you run out of hairspray. Take your ass to the store and get some hairspray. So it's also important to point out there was an article came out. I want to say it was from the Post or the Times. The old gray lady. Somebody put it out that this incident of putting Gorilla Glue in your hair, it's not the young lady's fault. It is the fault of white America not understanding how people of color struggle with the selection of products, the lack of product, the lack of variety of products to put in your hair. So anyway, I thought that's what I got to say on that.
So she did that by accident. I mean, like I remember hearing the hair thing, and she got it removed. I mean, she did that on purpose or by accident.
From what I read, she did it on purpose. Like she knew, like, okay, I don't think this is hairspray, but it's good. It's good. It's going to function the same way, right? It's gonna hold my hair in place, right? So that's what I've read. That's what I've read off of CNN. I don't know. Oh yeah, it did, and it did for a month. For a month, it's like putting what's the chocolate that hardens when you put it on ice cream? It was basically like that. It was hard shell or something like that, man. It's like basically you run around with a ballistic helmet on your head. It's
and now other people are doing it because there's a guy in Louisiana, this guy Martin. I guess he's done other challenges like this. Lynn Martin decided that I think he was like, oh, I want to spray this on my lip and put a solo cup to it because I've done this before and it doesn't work. And the next thing you know, it's like, it's like that movie A Christmas Story, right? Where he puts the tongue up on the pole.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Dude, you know what? It's the Tide Pod challenge is what it is. It's like, let's see, I dare you to eat a Tide Pod. And then all of a sudden it was, we have to put warnings on there. You remember when the old car manuals, where it used to, so Luke brought up, carbureted cars. The manuals used to teach you, like, all right, these are your valves. Here's how to set the timing on your valves,
right.
Stuff like that. Like, that was just your car manual. That was your, in the glove box, or you got one of the Edmunds car manuals that told you everything about the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, now we have, like, one piece of paper. It's like, do not eat dish detergent. Do not put Gorilla Glue in your hair. Never mind. Here's how you change your spark plugs. Do not drink 10W40. It's where we're at as a society. It's insane.
It's like my Traeger. It's like my Traeger pellets. I have these knockoff Traeger pellets, right? And it actually says on the back of the bag, it's like, hey, this product's been known to the state of California to cause fires. I'm like, well, I hope so, because that's why I fucking bought it. Was to, I was going to have issues if it didn't catch on fire. But now I know the state of California has come out and said it's going to catch on fire. Now I know it's a good product.
It's crazy. It's like in the MRE heater. You had the picture of the guys like, do not eat. It's like, don't eat the MRE heater.
There's a reason that's on there.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Don't eat the MRE heaters. Don't eat Tide Pods, and don't put Gorilla Glue in your hair, kids. Other than that, man, I don't know what else to tell you. Sometimes we just got to take the training wheels off and just let it be what it's going to be. People are going to get skin up.
Or you just Gorilla Glue the mask to your face, and then you're good forever. There you go.
Dude, mind's blown. All right, that's it. That wraps up this episode. You gotta hit on that one.
CDC guidance. CDC guidance. Gorilla Glue the mask to your face. 2 of them.
That is absolutely hilarious. Dude, so I did not know. So I know you got us onto the platform in India, and I remember you saying something about it. But I can't believe that big of a percentage of our listeners are in India.
It's actually twice the amount of listeners that we have in Slovenia.
Yeah, man, Slovenia needs to step it up. Maybe when I said that they're like Austrians and Balkans combined, they might have lost a few listeners. Maybe. I know I'm right. I mean, come on.
Man.
At least they're not Austrian and Italian. Oh, gosh, can you imagine that? Oh, God.
Big oof. Yeah, for sure. No, man. Yeah, I didn't realize there were that many. So we were talking about China and whether it came out of the Wuhan lab or not. One thing I did want to bring up, I wanted to bring up the Uyghurs and kind of what's going on with them. We touched on it a little bit in the last episode. So I have a lot to say. I took a lot of notes. I've got a lot of data to present. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how we want to break this down because I don't want to talk for the next 20 minutes. But I don't want to throw it over to y'all because y'all probably don't have shit to say about it.
Well, then this is the Josh.
I know you do.
This is the Josh segment of Culper's Canteen Cup.
No, I know you guys got stuff to say about it, but I'm gonna jump in. I'll give a little bit of background, kind of on who are the Uyghurs, where are they located at, and then we'll kick it around and go from there, man. Because like I said, I pulled down a lot of data. So the other day, Joe Biden came out and he said that he talked to Xi Jinping for like 2 hours on the phone, and he came out and he was like, "We got to get after China," or quote, "They're going to eat our lunch." He didn't say anything about the genocide that's going on in in China against the Uyghurs. He didn't say anything else besides, "Yeah, I talked to Xi Jinping for 2 hours, and we got to get after it because China, it's going to eat our lunch." Hey, man, they've already eaten our lunch. That happened a very long time ago. And so I got to thinking about the Uyghurs, and obviously a lot of things come to mind on that. But so I sat down and I pulled a bunch of info up, from the Post, the New York Times, BBC, United Nations. There's some nonprofits out there that that are putting information out, and so for those of you who may not be familiar, so in the northwest corner of China. It's in the Xinjiang province, right? So there's about 12 million Uyghurs. Uyghurs are, predominantly Muslims, and if you think about the the region, that Xinjiang province, it borders Mongolia. I want to say it borders Kazakhstan, up there, India, and a few places. So they're not right. So they're Chinese because they're from China, but they're really not. They really are more of your Asian steppe people. When you think about kind of their predominant physical features and language, they speak a dialect. No, it's close to Turkish. And they're really culturally and ethnically aligned, more closer to the Central Asian nations there on the Asian steppe. So, there's probably about 12. They estimate there's like 12 million Uyghurs. There's probably less now that China's killing them off. They call they don't. It's kind of like Kosovo. You have Mirosevic and Ferizaj. But so they don't call Xinjiang province Xinjiang. They call it East Turkestan. A lot of desert region up there, but there's a lot of natural resources. So the ancient Silk Road goes through the area, that connected Asia with Europe. It's where Genghis Khan rolled through, where Alexander the Great rolled through. A lot of oil, natural gas, and that's kind of that really kind of sums up the region there. Magic shell. That's it. That's good. Magic shell. So that's kind of the area. The Uyghurs, they're not from the most of your Chinese folks are Han. The Uyghurs are not. They more closely identify with Mongolians and Turks from the stands. So I'll throw it over to Luke. Luke can go input. I'm going to jump into after him. Right? We'll keep going into this because some of the information, man, it was absolutely shocking, appalling. It's completely insane.
It is, and being the globalist that I am, I could talk for days on how this problem is more important than anything going on in the U.S. And Roger always likes that. I'm joking, but what's interesting? As Josh said, he kind of gave you the history, and I'll kind of boil it down. Probably won't be what Josh wants me to say. He's probably got a better way of saying it, but Basically, there's an ethnic and religious minority in China, as Josh said, and the Uyghurs have been around much longer than Islam, much longer. They're Turkmen in origin, like Josh said, and all this stuff. Well, I'll say it. Chinese are known, I guess, for people who have spent time in China who are non-Chinese, to be extremely racist and extremely, I wouldn't say xenophobic, but very superior when it comes to their attitude about their own race. And they recognize that the Uyghurs are not truly Chinese. Also, they're Muslim, which is a problem for China. Any religion really is going to be a problem for any communist regime. So the Uyghurs have historically been persecuted. They've always stayed in that province over to the west, and but now the persecution has taken on a whole new tone. The Chinese have the Chinese have put 1.5 to anywhere from 1.5 to 3 million of them in literal like concentration camps. And you kind of need to do some disambiguation with that term concentration camp, because our minds always go back to extermination camps of World War II. And yes, those were concentration camps, but the word concentration means you're concentrating a bunch of people into one area so that you can have control over them. It's basically a prison. So a concentration camp, you almost call a refugee camp a concentration camp. But the Chinese are concentrating them all into one area, and there's some really unspeakable stuff going on there. I mean, not unspeakable. We're going to speak about it right here. There's instances of rape. There's instances of forced sterilization, forced abortions, very strict family policies, very strict religious policies. They have to report every time they go to the mosque, so on and so forth. Now, Josh always brings up a good point on Facebook, and I'm sure he'll touch on this again, so I won't steal his thunder too much. But this reminds me of like the Free Tibet campaign from, I don't know, maybe the late 90s or late 80s, early into the 90s. The Brad Pitt movie about Tibet, all this stuff, the Dalai Lama. And that got worldwide attention, and everybody knew Free Tibet. You'd see posters of it and all this stuff. Now we live in a different world because you don't see anything about this. There's no posters. There's no movement. You got LeBron James saying that, so-and-so should mind their own business and forget about China. You got, Mark Cuban turning a blind eye to it. Our own government's turning a blind eye to it because, China's laid down the law and says, hey, you want to call us out on this, you're going to suffer the consequences. And those are going to be economic in nature. We're going to build some more islands out in the South Pacific. That's fascinating to me that we're sitting here ignoring this happen. And I just wonder how far it could go before, they're called out on it. And I'll say they could pretty much do whatever they wanted right now. Because going to war with China, again, doesn't benefit anyone. So we're not willing to just stand up and do the right thing because, our economy might stagnate and it upset the world economy. Now, one thing, I'll touch on this and then kick it to Roger. One thing that Josh points out and I find fascinating as well is that there's no jihad. There's no Islamic jihad. Maybe there is. Maybe there's been a fatwa or something, but there's no jihad about what's happening to the Uyghurs, and those people, make no mistake, are Muslim. But I will say this, after having spent some time with Uyghurs and Arabs and Persians, is they're pretty insular as well. So although they are Islamic, they're like, well, they're Islamic, but I don't know if we're ready to start a jihad over this, almost like, I don't know. They stick their necks out for the Muslims in Georgia, or not in Georgia, but in the North Caucasus. So why not stick them out for Uyghurs? You're obviously either afraid of China, which I think that's it. China won't stand for that stuff, man. And I don't think they'd have much of a shot. But I do think that's interesting. There's no jihad. I know, Roger, you say you don't track it, but I know you do. What do you think?
It's not that I don't track it. This one in particular, because I remember it was actually, I think when I retired back in 2015 is when it first kind of made its way into the mainstream media. And I think the biggest thing is just the lack of coverage. And you hit it on the head. I mean, one, China's done a fantastic job as far as their PR campaign goes. when you look at the economic ties, when you look at the ties to the NBA, and at the end of the day, you're a lobbyist. I mean, where do these folks get a lot of their money from, right? They're going to get their money from big money donors, big corporations, big businesses. And I'm not opposed to a lot of that stuff, but I'm saying you have to look at the backside. When you look at the NBA, that's worth God knows how many billions of dollars, and you look at the 1.5 billion Chinese or however many the hell there are over there, and looking at expanding to that market because the U.S. market is saturated. And then it also becomes a self-licking ice cream cone, as we've obviously had issues with, just recently with Mark Cuban and the playing of the national anthem, and, NBA ratings, I think, are actually up this year. But when you look, I think, across the board with sports, you've seen a pretty significant decline. I think the Super Bowl, which I hear just happened last week or whatever, had like the lowest ratings since like the 1960s or something, like 69 or something like that or whatever. So as you look at that, these companies, and especially in the media sports market, they're looking for the next big thing, right? Where else do you go? Because guess who doesn't give a shit if they don't play the U.S. national anthem? The Chinese. They could really care less. So then you obviously look at a lot of products that are made over there and this and that. And it kind of goes, this touches so many different subjects, because it's also one of, when you talk about like a true free market system, this is one of the things where I think Trump was on the right track. You can beat up China pretty bad economically. The fear is that things become more expensive, and loss of jobs and loss of money and economic downturn, this and that. If you truly have a free market system, what would happen is the U.S. companies, right, would be flexible and would start to pick up that slack. But when you start instituting things like minimum wage, when you come up with these just these artificial baselines for anything, and I'm not opposed to minimum wage to a certain extent, right? But this, again, it goes back to, well, $15 an hour, why not 20? Why not 25? Why not 30? What you're doing is you're taking away from the flexibility, or taking the flexibility away from the American business person to be able to adapt their business to pick up that slack. And that's something that I think that Trump was on the right track with, and unfortunately it looks like we're going back away from that. When you talk about the Uyghurs specifically, here's what's really ironic on this thing. When you look at and I'm actually pretty impressed, Luke, because you hit a couple things on the head that I had jotted down. That was, it gets passed over, but to me, it's very important. One is the religious aspect of it. Okay, when you look at the enemy of communism, it's religion, right? Religion is the enemy of communism. They cannot coexist. When you look all the way back to Marx and Lenin and Khrushchev, they were all atheists. And Marx, at length, went to explain why, he doesn't believe in religion, and why religion doesn't play a role in a communist form of government. So off the bat, when you look at just the religious aspect of it anyway, it just doesn't go hand in hand. When you look at what's going on with the Uyghurs in these concentration camps, and I'm starting to read more and more about this stuff. It's not just concentration camps. These are re-education camps. Okay, these are re-education camps back to the Zedong days in the original China, or not the original, I guess the latest Chinese Communist Revolution, right? So it goes all the way back to that. But here's the incredible thing about it, reading up on a little bit of the history. The whole basis for the Chinese Communist Revolution was because of the disparity as far as like, the different classes in China, right? You had a lot of economic disparity where your poor were extremely poor, your rich were extremely rich. You had the upper class, and that's kind of like when you ever talk about communist revolts or socialist revolts, that's a revolution. That's kind of where that comes from, and that's kind of what's going on right now. Is you had the Uyghurs that are primarily farmers, right? Played a role in the silk. It's just a very, and I'm looking for a word here, but when you, lack of a better term, like a very feudal, economic, infrastructure, compared to when the Hans came in, and then the Hans started taking all the good jobs, and then they moved beyond farming, and the next thing you know, they start pricing out the Uyghurs, because now you've created two classes. You've got the Hans, who are ethnic Chinese, right, that are based on that communist principle, and then you've got the Uyghurs, who are primarily farmers. So you've created the same two classes that you had that were the reason for the last Chinese Communist Revolution. So, it's a little bit ironic. When you look at the re-education camps, I mean, you can only imagine what that is, okay? And it's not hey, we're just going to go send you to school and we're going to teach you about the communist ways. And it doesn't happen like that, right? I mean, you're talking about all kinds of abuse. And I will tell you, the Uyghurs have come back, and, I think they tried to bomb an airline. So they are actually starting to ramp up their level of violence to fight back, because here's what happens to these folks out there on that in that area of the world. And this has been my argument when, especially with Afghanistan, because we've all done multiple tours out there. They don't have anywhere else to go. Okay, and I tell you what, man, you start back, because at first when I started reading about the Uyghurs, it was like, well, okay, they had an incident, 2009. They killed a bunch of Hans, and then you had the airline thing and a couple things. You start reading, it's like, okay, these are some pretty bad dudes, but you're talking about decades, right? Decades of the Hans moving in, pushing them out, and then eventually get to the point where there's nowhere else to go. And that's what, when I went to Afghanistan, that was one perspective I always tried to keep as you were, fighting against the Taliban and, and whatever. And this is beyond, Al Qaeda and ACM. Those groups moved in. When you looked at like true Taliban, which kind of just became a term because everybody was Taliban out there, but there's nowhere else for these guys to go. Where are you going to bomb them back to? Where are you going to fight them back to? Nowhere. This is what they have. There's nowhere else to relocate to. So, and then Luke, you did bring up something pretty interesting with the, where is the rest of the Muslim, community? And I'm wondering, is that something that happens in 10 or 15 years? If there are any Uyghurs left by then, I don't know. At this rate, probably not. But when you say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, is that something that the Muslim community gets behind? Because, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this stuff. It's when you look at relationships between the Muslim community and the Chinese, it seems like for the most part, it's been kind of, they just kind of stay apart. China kind of does its thing, and, the Muslim world does its thing. And I don't recollect any, I'm sure there are, I'm sure I'm just, not being the globalist that Luke is, I'm just not, privy to it. I just don't track it as much, but just kind of makes you wonder when they start to come in and say, hey, look, we're going to start backing our, Uyghur brothers and sisters over there or whatever. So I forget, one of you had more info on it. Was it, I think it was Josh, right?
So when we talk about why Muslim countries and Muslims in general won't get on board with rallying and in support of the Uyghurs, a lot of it, for at least some of the a lot of the predominant Middle Eastern countries, is China's Belt Road Initiative. So for those listeners who may not be familiar with China's Belt Road Initiative, think back to the Silk Road. So in 2013, China launched what they call the Belt Road Initiative. It links 78 countries across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Oceania. So they have a lot of money. China's funding a lot of money into these countries, right? So they're building a massive port in Pakistan. And so that's the lever that China uses with some of these predominantly Muslim countries. Hey, all right, you keep your mouth shut about the Uyghurs, and we'll keep that money rolling into that port. You'll prosper too. If you want to buck up against us, because of the Uyghurs, we'll just go ahead and pull that money lever and shut that thing down. And you can go back to your squalor. The other two things, from an article I pulled from Al Jazeera, actually, it was kind of interesting, is that so you bring up the Uyghurs bombing the plane. So there was also an incident, I want to say it was 2017, 2018, where a couple of Uyghurs, they killed like 31 people, 31, Han Chinese with knives. And it was like on a train or a subway somewhere. And so China is we are trying to control terrorism, right? And so some of the countries, they can get on board with that. They can understand that, because they're trying to keep, some of the dictators, hey, we're trying to keep that out of our backyards too. So that kind of resonates with them, some of the Middle Eastern countries. And then at the end of the day, there's some Middle Eastern countries, guess what? Their human rights record, not exactly good. So they don't want that highlighted. So I think those are from reading and trying to get smart on this. I think those are some of the reasons why we haven't heard some of the predominantly Muslim countries and a lot of your prominent Islamic figures come up and get on board and speak out against this. So we kind of touched on some of the things that are going on in some of the camps. So according to the United Nations, in 2018, 80% of all IUD placements in China, 80% were done in Xinjiang province. Xinjiang province only accounts for 1.8% of China's population, but they put 80% of the IUDs in Xinjiang province. So, do the math, look at the Uighurs, they're not putting them in camps, putting them in ovens, but they're simply sterilizing them, and so generation from now, they're just not going to exist as a people. And if you read section
them out. If we can't force them out,
we'll breed
them out.
Yep.
Well, and remember the UN. I'm glad you brought up the UN because they inquired about it, right? And you know what China's answer was? We don't have any camps. UN was like, okay, sounds good to me.
And then the UN put China on the Human Rights Council.
Dude, you can't make this stuff up.
It absolutely, dude, it's absolutely insane. But if you go in and you read Section D, Article 2 of the Crime of Genocide from the United Nations, quote, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the targeted group. Right, that's straight out of Section D, Article 2, published December 9th in 1948. That literally is a crime of genocide. China is doing it right now, and nobody is calling them to task on it. We talked about the re-education camps. They're not just labor camps. They're flat out re-education camps. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute found evidence last year of 380 re-education camps in Xinjiang province. So I pulled a Washington Post article, and they interviewed this lady. She was a Uyghur. She managed to escape China and made it to the United States. She now lives up in Northern Virginia. I'm not going to use her name, but she described some of the things that happened to her in the Uyghur camps. First off, all the towns, villages, cities where Uyghurs live, it's all under ubiquitous technical surveillance. It's 24/7 monitoring. They have the block captains like they do in Cuba, that report on their neighbors for not wearing masks, going outside of their house during court. Oh, sorry, that's in the U.S. They have those. They have their block captains. So she spent 62 days in a re-education camp. She was in a cell with 60 women. The cell was designed to hold about 20. They had to lay down and sleep in shifts because not everybody could lay down at once. There was too many of them. And then they gave them medication, and they gave them other things. It either significantly changed their menstrual cycle, or it stopped it completely. And then at the end, when she finally got released after 62 days, they told her, hey, we're going to give you a free medical procedure, no cost, the government will pay for it. They wouldn't tell her what it is, but they forced her to do it. They went and, she was like, no, I don't want it. And so like a day or two later, they snatched her back out of her house, and they did it. And they basically tied her tubes. And the other one, let's see, they had to put on this basically like this helmet that had electrodes attached to it. It was electroshock therapy. They had to sing songs about Xi Jinping and about praising the Chinese Communist Party. Absolutely crazy, man. Like this is literally happening as we're sitting here recording this. And, so we talked about a little bit about the, Roger, you touched on it, in companies and, capitalism. How can, people that are profiting off of this, and how do we stop this? So I think it was Ryan or somebody posted, a list of the companies that are benefiting from these labor camps, because they're still making products, man. They're rounding them up. They're sticking them in rooms, and they're making products. And here's a list of the companies that are directly benefiting from. I'll touch on a couple of them because it's a huge list. So Adidas, Abercrombie and Fitch, Gap, Fila, H&M, LL Bean, Nike, Puma, Polo Ralph Lauren, Skechers, Victoria's Secret are just a few of them that are directly benefiting from this Uyghur forced labor out in Xinjiang province. It's absolutely insane. It is literally genocide by the very definition. They're literally sterilizing people, having them in concentration camps, forced labor. You know, everybody knows what it says right above the gate of Auschwitz. You know, work will set you free. It's terrible, and I just at some point either the world has to care, or no country on earth can sit there and maintain that moral high ground as they sit here and watch this go by. It's a damn tragedy.
And does this finally, when do some of these extremist Muslim groups, start up paying attention? And I think we're witnessing, we're in the midst of a global shift. And I try to be optimistic about it, but it's hard. It's hard to be optimistic seeing what's going on in the U.S. and what's going on in China, how we react to certain things, how China reacts to certain things. It's hard for me not to envision the remainder after 2050, or sooner than that even, the remainder of the century not being the Chinese century. Things would have to change significantly. So piggybacking on Roger and Josh with this is, Roger's like, well, when are they going to stand? Everything comes full circle. They're going to stand up sooner or later. And yeah, they're holding their people in line because of the ports and the amount of money that comes in. But it's a very, I'll use Josh's word, ubiquitous. The Chinese presence right now is ubiquitous, not the right word. It's passive, but it's much the same as the oil companies were back in the 1960s, 50s, 60s, 70s up to 79. Then it started getting kind of chippy over there in the Middle East. The same thing's going to happen with China once they're the big dog on the road. Big dog on the block. People sit up and start paying attention because they'll have nothing to lose. Much the same as Al Qaeda did with the U.S., ISIS does with Europe. Eventually, it's going to come around and hit them. I'm convinced of that. Now, one thing Josh brought up, the Australian study or statement or whatever. It's not like nobody in the world. It's like we don't hear it a lot about it in the U.S. I know Australians are making a lot of noise about it right now, and they're going head to head with China on that diplomatically. I don't know. Our Indian listeners, I'd like to hear if it's even news over there. I don't know. I think 14.9% of the Indian population is Muslim. It's a majority Hindu. But I'd be interested to hear about that. In particular, Josh was supposed to bring this up, but he kind of petered out on it. We were tracking pretty close. We're like, oh shit, here we go toward the end of Trump's term about India and China going at it there on the border. And I don't have all the names right in front of me, but the good news, I guess, if you want to call it that, is, we were digging into it in preparation for this podcast. It seems just a couple days ago, a bunch of articles were coming out saying that India and China have started to pull troops back from that contested lake or river there. And, it is interesting. You see a 6% uptick in your listenership in India, and you're like, wow, okay. Well, yeah, I know a lot of people speak English over there. Why are they interested in the podcast? So you start digging into, I really don't know much about India. But I do know this. I do know that the population is extremely dense. I know the population is extremely high. I also know that the population of China is extremely high. I know that there are limited resources in the world. And I know that eventually, when you have high populations and dense populations and limited resources, eventually those two populations are going to go head to head. It's almost natural law. So, yeah, I know that India is also a nuclear power, as is Pakistan, as is China. So I'm sure that holds a lot of the gunplay at bay most times. But, it's just a matter of time before India and China really go head to head. Probably not on a nuclear level. Neither can afford that. But it is a very interesting part of the world. And we'd love y'all's feedback on that if you have anything to add.
So I guess if anything's going to happen over there, now's the time for it to happen, because we can send our vice president over, who, by all media accounts, is the first woman, black, Indian, Asian vice president that we've had. So what better person to send than Kamala Harris, right? It's like, hey, I'm Asian. Hey, I'm Indian. Peace out, guys. Right? She can bring the peace together. She can bring, and it's crazy because when you talk about, and obviously we can't control the rest of the world, but when we talk about what we're doing here, you guys hear that they're talking about like allowing Huawei products back into the U.S. I mean, they're talking about sitting there with so everything that Trump did over the last, couple of years, and everybody knows like the whole TikTok thing, and this goes beyond Trump. So it's not like it was a Trump thing. I think there was an actual, it was done during Barry's administration. There was a Senate Intel report that came out that basically banned Huawei, and they, as well as the FBI at the time, came out and said, hey, yeah, you don't need to have any Huawei products on your backbone and what have you. But I read earlier this week that they're sitting here talking about, yeah, well, you know what? It's more of a global society, and to be better connected with the rest of the world, we're going to have to allow some of these products in here. And so then it just makes you wonder. It's like, well, how hard are these lobbyists pushing now? I mean, it's got to be a huge PR campaign. It's going to be a huge money campaign. I mean, we already know what Hunter got, but there's got to be this huge campaign on politicians now. To allow China to come back in the market, which I think is it's very hard, because when you sit there and you look at, okay, we're not going to go to war with China. So where's your war? Okay, it's your trade war and your economic policies is what you have, and the more you allow China's meat hooks into our infrastructure, our technology, the harder it is to do that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, as you were talking about, what was the plan called, Josh? What was the name? Damn. Yeah. So I remember reading something about that not too long ago, and I forget the amount off the top of my head, but you said Pakistan and I think India. I think when you look like the amount of money that they are going to invest in the infrastructure in that region of the world, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible, right? And so they start to infiltrate from the ground up, and then they make you dependent on them. And so when you get to folks about, we talk about force projection, and it's not just military, but it's also economic policies, right? I know not everybody's a fan of sending money for this and that or whatever, but there are some reasons for doing that stuff, because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to. Okay, and if somebody else does that, then those other countries, as Luke gives me the big look there, but it's as somebody else starts feeding this and funding this, it makes them reliant on that, and that's kind of like when you look at you talk about China and India. What if India becomes solely dependent on China as far as their infrastructure, telecoms? They might already be. Like I said, I'm like you, Luke. I don't know enough about it. I guess we can always reach out to Fang and Swalwell. Which, dude, I can't. I'm sorry, man. So I'm sitting there watching like the impeachment stuff, right? I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm watching the impeachment stuff. One, it's just completely dumb. I mean, my kid can do a better cropping job and taking things out of context than what the Democrats did day one. Now, the GOP did not help themselves. I don't know if the GOP lawyer or Trump's lawyers, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking day one, because they were horrible. They were atrocious. Today, they were a lot better. But I see Swalwell get up there, Fartwell, whatever. But I can't take that dude seriously, man. I'm like, you're going to get up here and talking about, insurrections and this and that. And I'm like, dude, you were nailing a Chinese spy, and you were probably being run for the last several years, probably still is being run. It's like, I can't take that dude seriously. But then today I actually watched probably a good couple hours of of Trump's defense. Yeah, good call, Josh. Yeah, Feinstein's driver. It's like 20 years, right? 20 years? Imagine what he was privy to over the last 20 years. So in this industry, I hate that term, in this industry, because nobody else knows this industry, but in our industry, you always talk about the gray people, right? It's always the gray people. It's your enemies and your allies or your friends, but it's always those folks we used to call the janitors and those folks that are just, they have access to everything. They're the dumb nugs. They don't know anything. They're just stupid. This guy's just here to take out the trash can. hey, this guy's just here to drive me around. This guy's just here to clean the bathroom or whatever. That's those gray people, man, that are privy to everything. But anyway, back to the impeachment. Sitting there listening to the defense today. I don't know, Josh, Luke, if either one of you caught any of it. Great job with the defense. I don't know what the what the pundits are going to say about it, but basically, Democrats the first day played just a bunch of clips of things that Trump said and whatever. Totally out of context, whether you believe or not, whatever. What the defense did today was, one, play the entire clip, even back to like the Charlottesville thing, play the entire clip so they get the context of it. And not only that, but then actually took the clips from the Democrats, what they said during the impeachment hearing. And, a couple of things they've gone back a couple of years ago where he's just playing clips of them saying the word fight. Like 30 clips. We got to fight. We got to fight. And Pelosi, we got to fight. Dude, it was classic. So I tell you what, get on YouTube, go take a look at it because they did it about 3 or 4 times a day. And it was absolutely hilarious. I thought it was a great, a great comeback from their failed first day. But I guess it takes me to, like, I don't even know, I guess watching it. And, it's pretty much out there. As a Trump supporter, as all three of us were. But the guy's gone. Like, I haven't even heard of the guy, right? He's gone down to Mar-a-Lago. He's doing whatever it is that he's doing. They can't get over him. I don't even know what the end result of this thing is. Like, I don't think he's going to be impeached. I mean, he's not going to be found guilty. And if he is, so what? I mean, it does nothing. It's totally a political process. I like what his lawyers did at the end saying, hey, there's a COVID relief bill that needs to be passed, so I'm not going to take up all your time because I hope that you guys and gals will take the time and go ahead and pass a stimulus bill, right? Throw back to the American people. But he is gone. They just can't seem to get him out of their heads, which brings me to Nikki Haley. And I think, who was it said that he was, that she was licking the chocolate starfish? Was that Josh? So Josh, what do you think, man? Like, what the heck just happened? So Nikki Haley, I'm gonna do my, ask the question and then go into my 5-minute diatribe, like Josh or Luke says. So she's been a supporter of Trump, right? Right to the end, ride or die. She's been up there, and I think they've been very complimentary towards each other. And he's helped her out, she's helped him out. Big supporter. And then I'll let you go into it, Josh. Like, what happened today? I mean, I was actually shocked when you said it. I had to pull up the article. I was like, I can't believe it.
Yeah. All right. So real quick. So I'm the one that sent the article. It was actually Luke. And for the sensitive, you need to plug your ears for a minute. It was actually Luke that said Nikki Haley was licking Mitch McConnell's chocolate starfish. Right. So we'll get back to Mitch McConnell's chocolate starfish here in a minute. Put a pin in it. Real quick, I want to finish up with India and China. So the area that you were talking about, it was last year when India and China, we were looking at that and it was like, holy smokes, man! Like we are about to have 2 nuclear powers potentially go at it, and so it's directly east of the Kashmir region, which is everybody knows that's a disputed region between Pakistan and India. Which Pakistan, for those of you who are not geographically inclined, Pakistan sits to the west and just a little bit of the northwest of India. So it's in a place called the Galwan Valley, and it's a place called Pangong Lake. For our listeners in India, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, feel free to jump on and our Facebook page, Instagram, ridicule me. It's fine. I put on my big boy pants every day. So it's a lake. There's there's 8 terrain features that stick out into the lake. They look like fingers, so they call them the fingers. Well, India claims all 8 of those. They patrol 3, kind of up to finger 3 as they call it, and then they do joint patrols with them and the Chinese for the rest of the 5. And so last year they went to fisticuffs. Literally, it was no guns were involved. It was straight fist, pipes, rocks, anything you pick up. And 20 Indian soldiers died, and a lot of them basically fell to their deaths because you're talking about the Western Himalayas. It's very, the ridges up there are knife edge. And so, that area is, it's long been disputed between China and India. But last year, like, I mean, it was getting very, very sporty up there, especially toward the end of the year. And it was like, okay, are these two countries about to go to guns and go at it? Pakistan was loving it because they would love nothing more than to see, China take over India. But the good news is that they are starting, they de-escalated. China is actually pulling its troops back out of the Pangong Lake area. So that's good. Hopefully, this has some diplomatic end to it and not a kinetic solution. But I'm still on China. China is not to be underestimated. So Roger's talking about the economic pressure that China leverages on folks. They are beating everybody, and it's the gray zone, right? So it's that zone that's just below the threshold of kinetic conflict, but it's above the friendly economic competition, right? So you're in the middle of that. And it's the gray zone, and China is beating us. China is beating us with the Belt Road Initiative, with their expansion onto basically all the continents. And one thing that people, I didn't realize, and this is one of the things that I've been digging into for a while on the work side of how is. So everybody knows the Mekong River, right? Everybody's heard about the Mekong. Most people associate the Mekong with Vietnam and Apocalypse Now. Well, the Mekong River originates in China. Before the Mekong River leaves Chinese borders, China went in and built 11 dams. So now China controls the Mekong River, which includes 20% of the world's freshwater fish catch. Think about that. 20% of the world's freshwater fish catch, China controls. The Mekong River, it either touches or supplies the water to the tributaries for Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. China controls that. Think about how much leverage China can now place on those countries. I control your drinking water. I control your economy. I control 20% of the world's freshwater fish catch. China has been doing this, and it's all about the name. It's all been done. Well, it's just economics. It's just the economy. It's the economy. China's not bad. It's a global economy. China's been playing chess. Man, we've been playing Connect Four. We weren't even playing checkers. Dude, China has killed us. They've absolutely killed us in the gray zone. And I'm telling you right now, 10 years from now, China will own the United States, and they will not have fired a shot. I'm telling you right now, it's not good. It's bad. People need to pay attention.
I'm going to inject and then kick it right back to you, I promise. But people said the same thing about Japan back in the 80s. Well, Japan's going to eat our lunch. They own so much real estate, this and that, whatever. Oh, Japan. Japan is a competitor, but not a strategic competitor. And that was a different time, man. The 1980s was a different time, and Japan's an ally. They're one of our closest allies in the world. I mean, name me. I mean, other than the Five Eyes, English speaking, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK. Name me. Name me another ally that's as strong as Japan. I mean, Colombia's close. People don't realize that. Colombia is a very, very strong partner of ours, ally. They consider themselves. But that's why I was going to interject, Josh, is that this is just a different time. I don't think that I try not to be Chicken Little. I really try not to be Chicken Little. But I just see the way things are going. I don't see the momentum stopping.
I definitely don't see the momentum stopping, especially not with this administration. And we could dedicate episodes to what China is doing around the world. China owns U.S. land here in the lower 48. China owns the equivalent to the size of the state of Tennessee in the lower 48. That's how much land they own. They outright bought it. They own it. Chinese companies own it. The size of the state of Tennessee. Now, people say, oh, well, China's, it's just, they're just an economic competitor. They're just an economic competitor. I'm telling you right now, China is not an economic competitor. China, you go back and you look at, one of y'all brought it up. You talking about the revolutions, right? You talk about the color, the color revolution that China had. People are like, oh, well, that ended. No, it didn't. It did not end. Go read The Great Chinese Revolution by John King Fairbank. It'll tell you, and if you go back and you look at what China says they're going to do, they are going to do it. When Xi Jinping says, we are going to take Taiwan, they are going to take Taiwan. I promise you, right, they could take Taiwan today and we wouldn't do shit about it. They wouldn't do shit about it, especially not with the current administration being as soft on China. Roger brought it up. We all know what Hunter Biden's got his, he's tied monetarily into China. He's in bed with them. Biden, therefore, is in bed with them. It's not good. It is absolutely not good. So, circling back to Roger's original question, I forgot about you, Roger. I'm gonna turn.
Well, no, real quick on the Japan thing. You got to remember with Japan, by treaty, weren't allowed to have a defense force. Weren't allowed to have a military. So there's a big difference. And I remember in the 80s, they're like, oh, Japan owns 90%. Well, it's like, we kind of did that because we said, oh, by the way, we had a couple, that whole World War thing. So they weren't able to have a military. We provided a lot of that defense. So it is an apples and oranges comparison when you look at what Japan was doing in the 80s versus, what China was doing back then and continues to do now.
And that's a great point. So for Nikki Haley, it might have been Luke, it might have been you, Roger, I'm not sure. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about a lot of these politicians who turned on Trump, the minute, on January 21st, they were off the Trump train. It was like, okay, well, you rode his coattails for a very long time. You rode his coattails and you benefited from him. And now that he's out, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw him under the bus. So the latest one to do it, Nikki Haley came out today or yesterday and said it was a mistake to listen to him. He wasn't a good president. It was a mistake to follow him and everything. Well, she's one of the front runners for 2024. She's a name that gets talked about a lot. And so, Nikki Haley, I think she's going ahead and she's, publicly positioning herself to run in 2024. I'd be curious to hear what Nikki Haley has to say, being the former ambassador to the United Nations and being of Indian descent. I'd be curious to see what she has to say about the Uighers in Western China, up there in the disputed region of Indian China up there in the Galwan Valley. I'd be curious to hear what she has to say. Maybe she can come out and talk about that instead of denigrating the former president to score political points. Luke, what do you think?
Point. I had forgotten about Nikki Haley being of Indian descent. That's a good point. One more China thing, a couple more China things. Maybe that'll be Trump's legacy, the guy who warned about China. And, the empty words, it's all political. Biden said, they're going to eat our lunch. Well, yeah, like Josh said, dude, they already ate our lunch, our Twinkies, and took our lunch money for tomorrow. I mean, dude, yeah, wake up. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for reminding us. But, maybe that'll be Trump's legacy, being a globalist as I am, I track a lot of foreign stuff, the foreign affairs and things like that. And, I'm not talking down to Roger at all. I know he tracks this too. And so I'm smarter than these guys. Everybody knows that's true. But, one of the things, is a very strategic move by Trump to push for, starting the process of reunification between North and South Korea. Because if North and South Korea could actually peacefully reunite, get rid of the dictator, get rid of the Kim dynasty and all that stuff. Now, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But if that did happen, let's just say it happened within a couple years, that would be extremely bad for China. And I'll tell you why. Because now you have a technological power, which is South Korea, with a ton of cheap labor. A ton of cheap labor. And that cheap labor is going to get an increase in quality of life almost overnight, and you are going to have a powerhouse. So that's bad for China. And I think that was part of the calculus. I don't know. I guarantee one of Trump's advisors told him that. I don't know if Trump figured that out himself or not, but I thought that was a great move. But you're going to have Chinese lobbyists, or lobbyists who work for Chinese interests, lobbying against that because of that very reason. It would be bad economically for China. It would be really bad. But it would also, the other lobbyists you have that would be Japan, because it would also be very bad for Japan. To have all of a sudden you have another competitor in the region. That is not good for them. They don't want that. They're happy with status quo as long as nukes don't start flying. Now with China, I'm going to kick it to Roger after a couple points. There's been a couple of things that Joe Biden has done over the past week where it's like, why are you doing this? I know there's an explanation for it. I wish you would tell me the truth on why exactly you're doing this. The first one is, I'll tie it with China here, is Joe Biden withdraws U.S. policy to track Chinese influence in American schools. Now, China has something called the Confucius Institute, where they fund a lot of universities. They fund certain study programs, certain research. It's called the 1,000 Talents and the Confucius Program. And it's like Josh says, a den of spies. That's all it is. And the universities used to, I think Trump started the policy where we're going to start tracking that really close. And they're going to have to tell us how much money they're giving for what purpose, so on and so forth. And Biden withdrew that policy. And I'm like, and that is from the Hindustan Times. Haha. He withdrew that policy. And I'm like, why? Why on earth would you do that? Okay. That's not necessarily the question for Roger, but I would like him to touch on it. Another one that the Biden administration is moving to revoke the terrorist designation for Yemen's Houthi rebels. And it's like, why? That's from France 24. You're not going to see that in USA Today. It's like, why are you doing this? And then U.S. News, the very next day, headline, U.S. warns Yemen's Houthi rebels after terrorism delisting. It's like, we delisted you, but you better watch your step. It's like, in my mind, I'm working through the process. I'm like, why would they do that? And I think, well, maybe they're doing it because they want to bring Iran to the table with nukes. And Iran actually, then that's another point. We can talk about that later. But maybe they want to bring and that's one of Iran's conditions. You got to delist the Houthi rebels that we support in order for us to even come to the table. But here's my point, and this goes all the way back to the Iraq invasion of 2003. Just tell us the truth, man. Just tell us the truth. We can handle it, and we will decide whether it's worth it. We, the people, will decide, okay, is that the right or wrong call? But instead, you're going to obfuscate and say, well, we're delisting them from the terrorism because Orange Man bad. And everything he did was bad, so we're just going to relook all these policies, including calling what's going on with the Uighurs a genocide. So it's like, just tell us the truth, man. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, these are two really bad calls in 1 week. We talked about all the toothless executive orders and the Keystone Pipeline and all that stuff. You know, I think the Keystone Pipeline is a mistake, but we'll get over it, okay? We've lived without it this long. It would be better for jobs and the economy if we had it, but I can get over it, okay? But these two calls right here, one is foreign policy. I guess they're both foreign policy with the Houthi rebels, but the other is domestic policy with the Confucius Institute and just, well, no, we're going to reverse that policy of tracking them and making them declare exactly what they're doing. So it's like, you know, Roger, I don't know. These are two, in my opinion, really bad calls. And it's like, who said it? Josh, it was the Secretary of Defense, can't remember, said, I think it's SecDef, said that Joe Biden has been wrong on every foreign policy decision of the past 47 years. And it's like, well, here we go. You know, but the question is he wrong because he's just a fucking idiot? Or is he wrong because he's just on the wrong side of history? He's just on the wrong side of making these decisions, not playing the long game. I hope Roger's ready. I'm going to kick it to him and get his thoughts.
Thanks. Well, one on the
time. I started with the question.
on the China piece, it goes back to the mirror image fallacy we talked about last episode. The Biden administration and their officials do not agree with anything that's happened in the last 4 years. They think Orange Man bad. We've been too hard. It really is that globalist stance versus a nationalist policy. Because, like we talked about, I think one thing that we've seen in the last couple of years, or over the last decade, has been it's been a big change. It's not the America first, from the left. It's not America first. It's the Earth, the country, all the countries of the world. We have to move together globally. Whereas Trump really brought in that, nationalist, hey, it's America first, and if everybody else can go with us, that's great. But I don't think the Biden administration, going off with a lot of the officials that were coming from the Obama administration, believe that. They go back to that whole we're one world, we need to progress together. And I think that Biden in that camp believes that Trump was just mean, Orange Man was just mean to China. And so this is how we're going to soften it. This is how we're going to soften the language with China. This is how we're going to improve our relations with China, because it's that mirror image fallacy. It's if we do this, then China they're going to soften their stance, and maybe they won't steal as much of the $600 billion a year that we lose in IP theft to them. Hey, maybe they'll only steal $250 billion next year because we were nicer to them. Okay, that's one aspect of it. And it's obviously being pushed by the lobbyists, right? We opened the episode up with it when you talk about big businesses and the NBAs and these other companies that are involved. It's a lot of lobbying. Hey, we have to soften the tone. And that's how it works politically. You don't necessarily have to come over the top, direct shot right to the face. You can be very passive about it, and you bring it in the schools. You just soften the stance. And we're seeing that not just with China. We're seeing that with a lot of our domestic policies in the schools. Just look at the whole, I know it's totally off topic, but like the whole breast milk. What, hospitals don't call it breast milk anymore? They call it chest milk. And you soften that blow. And I'm going to tell you this. So if I was a kid and I was drinking milk, I would want to know that it's breast milk and not just chest milk, because I'm not sure I want any type of milk from anybody other than a woman. So I'll leave it at that. When it comes down to the Houthis, I have no idea what they're doing. I've read a little bit on it as far as like Al Jazeera, for what it's worth, and a couple other international publications, and there is a lot of concern over there, especially with the declaration as a terrorist organization, because what they've seen over the last 2 decades is, hey man, once the U.S. declares you as a terrorist organization, we're about to free the shit out of you. So internationally, and rightfully so, there's probably some concern there that, hey, look, this is going to, ramp up to further hostilities and this and that. But as far as removing them and removing them from that list, I don't know, man. I mean, I can't fathom like anything good that comes from that. I don't understand one bit of it, even politically. It's like, I don't know who that benefits. I mean, it clearly doesn't benefit us, right? Or I should say our allies, as far as that aspect goes. It's like when you look at, whether we're, you still consider us in the war on terror or not, or whatever the case is, they're a terrorist organization. So I don't have a good answer for your question, man. There are some things that I see, and it's, I don't get it. I don't even have an answer. I don't know if Josh has a better answer for that. I really don't have anything to say on it. Like, I don't know what are you thinking by removing them from that list? I have no clue, other than, the Obama administration. There were several officials. Remember, they signed. What year was this? Yeah, I don't know. It was towards the end of his second term, where you had a bunch of officials come out and basically like, hey, Yemen, that whole area, we just need to get the hell out of there. And that was their plan. And they tried to persuade him to leave. And, that's the only thing I think is that he's got some of those foreign policy folks in his camp now that are just saying, hey, we just need to unass the area. But again, that doesn't benefit us. That doesn't benefit us all. Now, I get it. It goes down to deeper issues. You can look at Iraq. You can look at Afghanistan. You look at the Middle East in general. Should we be there? Should we not be there? What percentage of our force should be there? What role do we play? So it goes on to some bigger, foreign policy issues. But other than just like unassing the AO, that's the plan. I'm not sure that's a great plan, and that's the only thing that I can see with the whole Houthi situation, Josh.
I think it's safe to say anything that benefits China and anything that benefits Iran is bad for the United States. I think you can automatically, doesn't matter what it is, if it benefits China or Iran, it's automatically bad for the United States. It's kind of like, I don't know what comment Bonnie posted on your, on that whatever thread you had on your Facebook page, Roger. But Bonnie was like, I found it enlightening and insightful and value. And I was like, you know what? I didn't watch the video, but the fact that Bonnie says it's legit makes it bullshit right out of the gate. Like, I don't even need to watch it. So I gotta put those in the same category. So we're talking, looking at the Houthis. So, the Houthis are Shia backed, or Shia. They're not Shia backed. They are a Shia terror group that came out of Ansar Allah. Back, and they've been around since the 90s. The Houthis just didn't show up last year, but they are absolutely tied to Iran. They're funded by Iran. They're supported by Iran. And I think Luke, I don't know why we delisted them, but I think Luke probably has the best explanation is, Joe Biden, prior to the election, he said that we were going to go back into, the Iran nuclear arms deal. And maybe that was, one of Iran's demands for us to go back in. Maybe they told John Kerry when John Kerry was over there, speaking with the Ayatollah, even, long before the election. We had that crazy thing called the Logan Act. I don't know. Even if John Kerry was over there doing the Jane Fonda thing, maybe Iranians said, hey, you got to delist take the Houthis off the terrorist watch list or terrorist list, for us to even consider you coming back in. I don't know, but I know Iran came out day before yesterday, and said, "Yep, we're enriching uranium, and it ain't for electricity, buddies." So you take that for what it's worth. It was funny. So I was going back and listening to some of our earlier episodes on the way back and forth to work, and I listened to our, I forget what number it is, but it was Pelosi's Distraction was the title, and it was when all the deals came out with Israel and UAE and Israel, Bahrain and stuff, and it's one of those things. It's like we're trying to isolate Iran. That's the thing. The whole Israel-Palestinian conflict. You get them at the table. It's like, no, we're trying to isolate Iran. That's the only way to fix that problem is to isolate Iran. And here the Biden administration is, no, we're not going to isolate Iran. We're going to kowtow to them. We're going to bow to them like Barry did. And it doesn't make sense.
Pallets full of cash.
Pallets full of cash. If you go back and you look at what the Houthis have done, they're not good people. I don't know how way to put it. They're not good people. And I don't know what the long game is here. And I don't know if there is a long game. Because the United States, you look at China has a 50-year plan. The United States, we change our policy every 4 to 8 years based on who comes in office. China doesn't have that. China's 50 years. Iran's playing the long game.
You know what pisses me off about that is people were actually in America were actually justifying the pallets of cash that we sent, that Barry sent back. They were like, well, technically that was Iran's money to begin with, so we just gave them back their money.
That whole thing when there was like, well, that was actually it was Iran's money. It was like, well, hey man, the mob made a lot of money that they froze, and the U.S. government would be like, oh well, my bad. This is Don Corleone's money. We gotta give it back to him. That is just that whole thing with Iran. Again, and it's crazy when people actually look at it. You look at who our adversaries are, and we say this. You look at the National Defense Strategy. What was that? 2017? 2017, 2018, the new National Defense Strategy, the NDAA came out, everything. It tells us who our adversaries are. Our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. And then these same people turn around and say, they're not bad people. They're fine. You're xenophobic. You're Islamophobic. Because, it's like, dude, our own government is telling you who the adversary is, and there's one particular party who kowtows to them.
It's not even that. They justify everything the left does. Because remember, the employees that were fired due to the Keystone Pipeline, they were only temporary. those were only temporary jobs for those guys. So you shouldn't feel bad for them because there are all these green jobs that are available for them right now to go into, right? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe as Barry said, remember those shovel-ready jobs weren't so, shovel-ready? And then he laughed about it, right? He laughed about it on TV. I'm like, wow, man. I mean, there are a lot of people that were depending on that stuff, and they make it sound like it was a one-for-one swap. I didn't mean to hijack your stuff, but it pisses me off because no matter what happens, no matter what the left does, and I don't care if it's the left or right, because I had this conversation with a buddy earlier today when, some other Republicans have come out and they say, Trump's taking over the party. We're going to create a third party or whatever. It's like, one, I don't even care about Trump anymore. He's not in office. The guy's not in office. He's not a political figure right now. If he runs, I'll make that determination later down the road if I'm going to support him. But it's not even about him at all. He's not the one in office making policies. It's the current administration. And no matter what they do, the left justifies it. I mean, we got kids back in cages again. Dude, you can't make this shit up. Or they don't call them cages anymore. What was the term for it?
They're overflow camps, Roger.
Stop. Oh, there we go.
Get it right.
Because here's the difference. And we'll tie this back to China before I throw it over to Luke. When you read about the, internment camps for the Uighurs, it's funny because there's a whole bunch of names out there. You've got the internment camps. You've got the re-education camps. I like the official name of it because this is totally what the Democratic Party would do. The Chinese government calls them vocational education and training centers. And they actually used old schools and old Votech schools, right, to hold these education centers or these training centers. I'm sorry. So anyway, I'll throw it over, Luke. It just really pisses me off because I don't care what the left does. It can be so effed up because according to even like Jen Psaki now, I'm wondering how long does she go before, like today, I heard her say, hey, we're only 3 weeks into this administration. Fuck, how long does that last? I mean, is it going to be next week? Hey, we're only 1 month in this administration. Hey, we're only 26 months into this administration. I mean, how long are we going to hear that shit, or is she just going to continue to circle back to us?
Well, as soon as that's over, well, we're only 26 weeks in, and the media's going to start catching on, and people can be like, well, that's kind of a long time. Then it'll be Trump's fault. Because something will happen with the economy. There'll be something. It's like, well, it's Orange Man. It was his fault. That'll be the next slide. Well, we're still getting settled until they're not, and then it'll be Trump's fault again. Back one more thing with the Houthi movement. It's not what you think. It's not like Al Qaeda. Okay. This isn't. They have their own government. They're starting to print their own currency in a section of Yemen. It's almost like a breakaway republic almost now. But their official slogan. This is the official slogan of this movement, which some would call a government. Here's the slogan. My Arabic's really rusty, so I'm not going to torture you with that. So I'm just going to say it in English. And you can look this up yourself. This is their official slogan. God is great. That's good. That first part's good. God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam. Now, man, those of you who know me, man, I'm a real big believer in the historical phrase, civis Romana sum. And in Latin, that means I'm a citizen of Rome. And back in the day, in the Roman Empire, you could go anywhere in the Roman Empire up to the very edges of it, and that's all you had to say, civis Romana sum. I am a Roman citizen. And they would not mess with you. Because if somebody messed with that Roman citizen, they'd send the legions and raise the entire area. So people knew. They were like, just leave him alone. He's a Roman. Just let him go. He looks rich, but we don't need that around here. And they would police their own. So when someone's out there, I'm a real big believer in that. And I think America should be like that. It's like, you're going to mess with our citizens. We're going to flatten the area, and we're just going to let it sort itself out. And if you're saying, death to America, those are in Texas, what we say is them's fighting words. You don't.
Even in Austin?
Not in Austin, but Austin's not Texas. That's the People's Republic of Austin. Sorry, all Austin listeners, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. Been a real interesting week. I'd love to get into the Time Magazine article. We don't have time for that today. There's a great Time Magazine article. It was hilarious. And I'd really like to do a whole episode on that if I can talk Roger and Josh into it. But first, before I kick it to Roger, I have to give Ryan a shout out to something he just commented on. If you guys remember the troll we had, I think we covered it the last episode, old David on Facebook saying, I'll remind you what he said. He did not recommend our business, Culper's Canteen Cup, for this reason. As a Republican, I find media outlets such as this the reason the Democrats won the majority of the House, Senate, and presidency. They promote far-right conspiracy theories and refuse to denounce white supremacists, rebel flags, swastikas, and Nazism. Not a good place to get information. Now, I was quite complimented, as I said last episode, that he called us a media outlet. Oh, that's a promotion. And he said we had a staff. I think Roger and Josh may be holding out on me. I don't know. But Ryan, down, and I got to give a shout out before I say what Ryan said to Shelly, Jed, and a couple other people I'm forgetting right now for actually going after I called him out and recommending the business. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. But what Ryan said, he commented, he goes, the television show Friends was immensely popular and ran for 10 years. In all those 10 years, they never once denounced white supremacism, racism, rebel flags, or Nazism. The only explanation, I guess, is that all the actors, directors, producers, etc., are racist bigots, right? I thought that was great. But, I thought that was great. But I'm pretty sure, though, Roger, we have denounced those things. We've talked about the rebel flag, but I think the three of us are like, we really don't give a shit. It's like, fly it, don't fly it, take it off the state flag. I don't care, whatever. It's like, I understand some people have some pride in it, but whatever, man. I don't care. I really don't care. I mean,
well, like I kind of responded. No, I responded later down the post. So I'm a minority as an Asian. I didn't know I had to do that. I thought that was kind of automatic, right? I mean, don't I maybe he's just talking to you two, but I don't know. I didn't think I had to denounce like white, supremacy and Nazis and all that stuff. I thought that was kind of given with my heritage and background, but I could be wrong. I mean, I didn't know. I thought based on critical race theory that the Biden administration is very supportive of, I thought it was just all white people are just inherently racist. And I thought it was just assumed that, it doesn't matter if I denounce it or not. I'm inherently racist because, I'm premium saltine cracker white. My bad. It's hard to keep up with the rules these days. It's changing because
he read the book, didn't you?
I did, and I have it written down. So maybe next episode, because you asked me to give like this little book review on it. So next episode, I'll take like 5 or 6 minutes and kind of give you my takeaways from it before I forget it. I did write some of the stuff down, but it is coming time for my people because lately there have been several major articles coming out on MSM with because of the whole China virus and this and that. With assaults and violence targeting Asian Americans going through the roof, especially in some of these bigger cities. So it's up there. Don't shake your head. Yes, it's happening. Well, one, you guys abuse me on a daily basis, so we'll say that for another episode.
I think the Yakuza may be acting out. Whatever.
My last tidbit before I throw it to Josh, I think he had something out. So any of you guys tracking like the White House deputy press secretary? So apparently this guy, TJ Ducklo, right, who's dating an Axios political reporter, Alexei McCammon. So they're dating each other. Politico wanted to reach out to him and ask him about the relationship, yada, 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 because you've got somebody that's obviously serving on the administration, dating a reporter. And so Tara Palmieri sent an email, from what I understand, to the girlfriend, kind of asking them, and then some dude sent the questions to TJ Ducklo, and then he replied directly to Tara. Didn't reply to the guy, replied to Tara, and was basically like, "You're just jealous because I won't fuck you, and I'll go fuck somebody else." And now they've never even met, right? I mean, he just goes off on this whole fucking thing, and that somebody would have sex with somebody else besides you. It's like, dude, this guy is demented, has issues, and then he ends it with, basically like, if you pursue this line of questioning or this interview, I will destroy you. Okay, that's what he says. This is coming out. This is the White House Deputy Press Secretary. So, and I've got breaking news update here too. Here is the quote that I take from earlier on in the year, and you guys can guess who said this. I'm not joking when I say this. If you ever work for me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect or talk down to someone, I will fire you on the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. President Joe Biden. President Joe Biden, right? Because that was all in response to all the stuff that, because Trump's a bad guy and he treats people bad and this and that and name calls and this and that. So with all of that going on, and that article was actually published in Vanity Fair, if I'm not mistaken. So they just released it here while we're recording here. So the White House Deputy Press Secretary, for all of that going on, which basically was harassment, you can probably even say sexual harassment, take to that extent, he was suspended for 1 week without pay. He really showed, I tell you what, the administration, man, they really put their foot down on that one. Holy cow. So with that being said, that's all I've got. Who's got? I think Josh, I think you had something left over. Oh, by the way, happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day to all the ladies out there, especially my ladies. Josh, that is an awesome diamond ring you bought for Nicole for Valentine's Day. So I hope she really likes that thing. Whole carat, man. That's, hey, big dog, dude. Big dog jumping.
I hate you so much. So last thing I was going to say, two things. One, again, if you have not, go out and read the 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury. It talks about China's quest for world dominance by 2049, which would be the centennial for the Chinese Communist Revolution. Go out and read it. If you go back, you read that thing and take a look back and everything that's happened. That's their plan. They're literally they are telling you what they're going to do, and they're doing it. It's not even it is right on the mark. They're doing it, and people are like, no, it's fine. It's just economic. They're our economic partners. No. If you think for a second that they're economic partners and that you think that there's no nefarious intent, I got a bridge to sell you. You're going to love it. It's a great price. And it goes to nowhere. So that, to echo Rogers, happy Valentine's Day. Fellas, get out there, do something nice for your women. Do something nice for your ladies. Ladies, you're not off the hook. Do something nice for your men. All right. I ain't let Luke's face. I ain't let the women off the hook. Your wife better do something nice for you. I know you're giving her a vacation back to the Estados Unidos. Right. So right. You're doing that. That's right. So what's she doing for you? That's the question you need to ask. What are you doing for me? And with that, I'll throw it over to.
You guys are going to get me in trouble. Yeah, travel starts tomorrow, and we'll be doing some I'll be at different locations, but I will not be in Arizona, nor will I be in North Carolina, because I've got better things to do. But, yeah, I'll be traveling, and we will try to figure out how we're going to do the Chaz, because don't forget, we're going to have a very special episode, probably coming out around the early to mid-March, where I'll be reporting from the Chaz in Seattle, and it's going to be great, and you'll see. It's funny. The funniest part of this episode for me was how Josh pretends like he acts like he can't pronounce the word Pillsbury. Come on, man. Yeah, you played that off really well, really well. We jumped around a lot, but I think we covered the topics fairly thoroughly. We do have time constraints, as Roger pointed out to one of our listeners. We appreciate the feedback, and call us out if we say something you think is wrong. But remember, we do have time constraints. We can't delve into this stuff and give you all our thoughts. Otherwise, it'd be a long form Joe Rogan 6-hour type podcast, and nobody wants to listen to us do that. So we really appreciate all of you listening. Thanks for all the feedback. Thanks for interacting with the page. Everyone's doing a better job at that. Our listeners in India, Slovenia, Slovenia got some catching up to do. I know a population of only 2 million. You can do it, man. I have faith. Thanks for listening. Carlton Zeus, again, appreciate you letting us use your music. Maybe we'll cover Mexico next time. Talk about Tejano and Mexican Americans and music and stuff like that, so you don't feel left out. Visit him at www.carltonzeus.com or hit him up on iTunes. Thanks again, everybody. Until next time, keep your canteen cups full and tightly secured.
All right. Is iTunes still around, or is it just Apple Music now? I think it's just Apple Music, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think on my computer, it still.
I haven't
says
opened
iTunes.
up that app and.
Oh, I'm opening it up every day.
Yeah.
Well, obviously for this and whatever. So stock picks. How you guys doing this week on the market, man? Did you get in? What's up?
Not good.
Not good today. Not good this week.
Well, Palantir's taking a nosedive, but I'm going to buy some more.
Palantir's taking nosedive. I would hold. On that.
I'm buying more. That company is not going away.
No, it's not going away at all. Tesla took it on the chin, day before yesterday. I think it dropped like $60 bucks. But at the end of the day, again, I got in, early last year, long before the split. And, when it split, it was at 400 a share. And it's still over 800. So, I'm sitting pretty, with that. So, yeah.
And you've doubled your money on Salem, right, Luke? By now.
I'm looking.
I'm almost triple.
I'm telling you, who was it? Luke might have been the one to say it, man. I do think there is a correction coming this year.
Oh, that's
happening.
I
think the market's way overinflated. It's coming this year. This year, before December, it's going to happen. But I hope it does, man. No, yeah, I hope it does. Because again, man, I'm a hold.
Just be liquid to buy.
That out. Yep, ride that out, and that's how millionaires are made.
I got a small growth fund ETF that's been doing really well. Even when the market goes down, that thing is still going up every day. So it's the Motley Fool, their ETF. The one small cap. It's pretty good. Every day 12%. Not 12%. I'm sorry. It's like 2% every day. It's pretty good.
Do you subscribe to Motley Fool? Or
no,
you just got
I read their free articles.
I do too.
I read their free articles and just like
yeah, I do. I read their free stuff, but I don't subscribe to them. I don't pay for it for sure.
Man, I took it on the chin with the movie theater and GameStop.
AMC.
Dude, I'm still holding, man. I bought it 360, man. And that shit's going to come back.
Here's the thing.
Oh, God. No, it's not.
I'm joking.
I can't even believe that GameStop is as high as it is because it's still at 52.40. What's going to happen? Like, when is their next earnings call? Because I tell you what, when they come out and people are like, hey, your company still sucks balls and it's not worth the $52.
It's going to go, dude. It's going to drop back down to $6. GameStop, that was one of those. We all know what happened. We talked about it, even though Dave said we were wrong. But GameStop, it's just the entire business model. It's not sustainable. It's not.
One thing I did not state well, at all. And Roger did call me out on it during the episode. It was like I said something like, "Well, there are people making informed decisions," and I meant like the one guy who went all the way back like to November.
Sure.
Who came in, and some people that came in with him, and some people made a lot of money. But yeah, dude, those people are fucking morons, man. A lot of them are just dumb, and it's like I could have stated that better. The majority of them are dumb, but there were some people that made some money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There were
I
some
wish
people
I was
that made
one
some,
of them.
Hey, early in, early out, man.
Yeah, there were some people that made some money off of that whole GameStop thing, but that was the folks who jumped in and jumped out within like 24, 36 hours.
Well, that's what I try to tell my son because he's into day trading or swing trading now, and trying to show him some things and teach him some of the technicals and this and that. He's like, "Oh, Dad, look at this!" He's on every hype stock that comes up. I'm like, "Look," I said, rely on your fundamentals. Now, I'm not opposed to jumping on a trend to make money. Right? Because a whole lot of fucking stupid people can make money a whole lot of stupid fucking ways. You don't have to have all the technicals down to make money. But it's like, as a long-term strategy, that's not how I want to trade. I think like all of us, you play with money that, like when I mess around my swing trading, I'm messing around with money I can lose. It's like Vegas, right? If I lose it all, hey, I'm just going to hold it until it eventually comes back up, and I'll sell it, and then at least break even.
Yeah, it's like when we all went to Vegas. Well, I mean, all of us except for Luke.
Oh, good one. I like it. I like it.
Right?
So
we all went to
for
Vegas.
Viewers out there, 2 of the 3 of us went to Vegas. You guys can choose which 2 you think made it.
2 of the 3 of us were at my retirement party. So anyway, so we all go to Vegas and we're out playing blackjack, and it was one of those things, like, so the wife and I, before we went, we said, hey, this is our amount that we are going to use, in the casinos. Once this is gone, that's it. It's done. Because we can afford to lose this, and we're not going to be eating ramen, and the kids aren't going to, go hungry for a week. And that's the same thing with, with stocks. It's one of those things. You have your, your long-term investments. Those are your serious. And then you have, hey, I'm going to play with these, and I'm going to take some high risk for high rewards, but it's money I can afford to lose. Right. And that's just, that's the way you got to be smart about it. You can't go in and, hey, man, this is my entire life savings I'm putting on GameStop. And then, 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, fuck, no, bro. You just can't do that. You have to be smart about it.
Ridiculous.
People using their mortgages, man. Like, I put my mortgage, like, oh, shit, how am I supposed to pay my rent? I was like, oh, my gosh, dude. And I think what should piss people off the most is, I forget what the percentage was, but they were like this huge percentage of people that were taking their stimulus checks and investing. Now, I don't care. People do what they want to do with their money, but obviously they didn't need the stimulus check. And, hey, that stimulus, that's not the government's money. It's our fucking tax money. That's what pisses me off.
That's where all of mine went. The ones I got that I shouldn't have got at all, all went into the TD Ameritrade. All of it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But I hear what you're saying. I didn't need that. I did not need that.
Yeah, we didn't need it. We should not have gotten it. But you know what I'm going to do with mine? I'm going to buy a gun for it. Thanks, Chuck Schumer. Thanks for buying me my new gun. Thanks, buddy.
Oh, good Lord. All right. So for all of our YouTube listeners out there, or YouTube viewers, thanks again for watching. I'm actually amazed because we really do no marketing on the YouTube page. Actually, we don't do any marketing for even the podcast because Josh has one job. And that he does poorly. He does it poorly half the time. But thanks for viewing out there. I guess we should have put this caveat earlier. We were absolutely joking about Gorilla Gluing your mask to your face. All right, and we were joking about Gorilla Gluing 2 masks to your face. So please don't go out there and do that. I don't want to see the new C3 challenge with Gorilla Gluing your mask to your face. So thanks for watching. I hope everybody has a fantastic long weekend. I hope you have a fantastic Valentine's Day. Ladies, like you said, don't forget to treat your man, and keep your canteen cups tightly secured.